Hi, you are listening to the AK Compass, guiding listeners through evolving ideas, directions. Your hosts are Carolina Zacco, communications and sustainability expert with 10 years living abroad and a love for traveling.
And Agnes Gardany, journalist who regularly covers many sustainability and travel-related topics.
In this podcast, we will discuss exciting destinations and social and environmental topics from all around the world, along with related non-political current affairs. Our goal is to provide informative and engaging interviews about travel, sustainability, and more.
We will bring you many people from different walks of life, sharing their stories from trips and living abroad. We also invite experts from all across the sustainability sector.
We would like to thank our sponsor, the Sweet Home Studio, for making this podcast possible. Their mission is to bring important social topics to Hungarian audiences. They also give new podcasters a great price to support more valuable content. They are based in Budapest, offering full technological support and a great space to make podcasts.
My co-host, Carolina Zacco, will talk about her trip to Madeira, Portugal, how she explored most of the island through local guided tours, and what that was like as a solo female traveler. She'll share her favorite neighborhoods, walks, culinary experiences, and what it feels like to arrive and depart through Madeira's famously challenging airport, along with practical tips on safety and avoiding tourist traps, so listeners can enjoy the island with confidence. Welcome to our show, Carolina. What first drew you to Madeira, and what surprised you most during your trip to this lush Atlantic island?
Hi, Aggie. Thank you for this opportunity that I can talk about Madeira. It has been my second time in Portugal that I went to Madeira. And in my first trip, I visited Lisbon and Porto. And I think Madeira at that time in 2023 was maybe a little bit less known. This was my second trip to Portugal. And I really wanted to see something that is still European, but Madeira is near Africa. It's a volcanic island, and I actually rarely visited islands in my life. And Portugal is interesting in many ways. It has different microclimates. It also has lots of lush landscapes, dramatic coastline, and levada walks. And I was really drawn to the idea of green subtropical island and in the middle of the Atlantic that you can explore quite easily in a week because Madeira is very small. What surprised me most was how compact yet incredibly varied it is. You go from steep cliffs and deep valleys to misty forests and sunny coastal towns in a single day, especially when you see the island through multiple guided tours. And I chose guided tours because I don't drive. So I was looking for local guides. I didn't go with a Hungarian organized group. I contacted a tour guide company there, and I did all the tours with them, and I was very happy with it. And I also had the evenings and the afternoons to explore myself.
You contacted with them beforehand, or
Yes. So everything was done with them, with their staff, their buses. It was quite a reliable service, actually. I was very happy and very friendly and knowledgeable tour guides. I was very surprised that almost all of them spoke multiple languages, like 3, 4, 5 languages.
The first experience you have on a trip like this is flying to Madeira's airport. It is known for its dramatic location and challenging landings. What was your experience of flying in and out of the island? And what would you say it adds excitement, anxiety, or a bit of both to the trip?
Flying to Funchal Airport was genuinely intense. The runway just over the ocean. So it basically stands on pillars, and then below the airport, it's used by the community. The space is used by the community, and you feel the way pilots are making sharp, precise turns with crosswinds coming off the mountains. On my arrival, the plane actually had to abort its first landing and only touched down on the second attempt, which definitely mixed excitement with a spike of anxiety in the cabin. In the end, the landing was smooth, and views of the cliff and the sea made it unforgettable as it just came from the clouds. So basically, as we were landing, the island just suddenly appeared from the clouds. It was like being in a movie. And this whole experience made it unforgettable. And I would like to advise nervous flyers to watch a few landing videos beforehand, because they need to know that this kind of maneuver is normal there. It was actually interesting to learn that pilots who fly to Madeira, they go through a special training specifically for this airport, because there's a cliff on one side and then there's the ocean on all three sides. So they have to make really exact maneuvers, and even then, the wind might change, the wind direction might change, and they still need to abort. And so the pilots who go there are actually highly skilled, more skilled than an average pilot. And only after they get this certification can they actually really fly into Madeira. So it's the locals said that you have to get used to the airport. It's quite safe. They don't really have issues, but then if there's a weather problem, then they close down the airport. When I was there was a Sahara wind event, and they had a Sahara sandstorm. It wasn't really a big deal on land, but I heard that the airport was closed, and luckily I had my flight out on the next day. And on the next day, it was the shortest boarding of my life. Like, they just told us that we're going. Now we have a window.
There's a window.
Yes.
You can fly out.
And we can fly out. And the plane just took off and immediately left the island. It was immediately turning away from the island.
I wouldn't say that all this is comforting, what you just said, but I guess it's worth it because the island is beautiful.
People live together with nature very closely, and they appreciate it. And for them, it's normal.
You explored almost the whole island through guided tours, the coastal areas, mountain viewpoints, and small towns as well. How did this way of traveling shape your overall impression of Madeira? How did you see the local approach to nature, which you've already told about a bit?
As you said, I basically saw the whole island via guided tours. I've seen the Sunday market, the Nuns Valley, coastal loops, the Levada Valle Paraíso instead of renting a car. That made the trip very relaxed. I could just look out the window while someone else handled the steep, winding roads, and it gave me a curated highlights reel of Madeira's landscapes and villages in a short time, because I only had a week. Listening to the guides, you can really sense how central nature is to the island's identity, and they talk a lot about the laurel forest, the water channels, erosion, and why staying on marked paths matters. So there's a clear emphasis on respecting and preserving the environment. And I also saw this for myself. I didn't always go everywhere with tour guides, because inside Funchal I was discovering on my own. I didn't see trash anywhere. Also, I didn't see any untidy houses. They really seem to care about their island. For example, during COVID, they also just closed the marina, and they closed the airport, and they just went back to agriculture. So everybody kind of found something else to do. They really appreciate how unique Madeira is, and there's a very serious environmental protection, but also they value their island, and it seems like they don't really want to change it. There is some investment into hotels, and there's that one part of Funchal, but you still see the local shops, you still see the local restaurants, and that they actually work with nature, and I think that's very important.
On your city walks in Funchal, which you said you discovered the city by yourself, which viewpoints, villages, or neighborhoods stood out most for you? For example, Funchal's Old Town, Zona Velha, with its cobblestone streets and the Art of Open Doors project that turned more than 200 doors into murals. And why did they feel special?
In Funchal, the old town, or it's also called Zona Velha, was the real highlight for me. The narrow cobblestone streets, the old houses, and the Art of Open Doors projects, where more than 200 doors have been turned into murals and artworks. And I really like this because they allowed artists to develop a previously very poor area, and now they have high quality restaurants, high quality bars, and it's a really lively neighborhood. It's still safe, but it's really lively. And I had the best seafood in my life there. Like they actually bring fresh seafood to your table, and you can choose what you want, and then they make it on site. That's how fresh it is. It's like basically the catch of the day or the catch of the last couple of days, but it's extremely fresh, and they are very friendly. And also, it's the murals are very beautiful. They are very tasteful. They are made in different designs, and there's a viewpoint at the end of one of the streets where you get through this the main street of the Zona Velha, the old town, and it was just really enjoyable. And I really like the social transformation and the street art, and of course the local food, and it's just really authentic, very alive, and Madeirans also seem to really appreciate it, and just highlight their own culture and their tastes.
In Funchal and Monte, which you also explored on your own using walking on foot, local buses, and the Funchal Monte cable car, or as a local calls it, Teleferico do Funchal. And you visited the Monte Palace Tropical Garden and the church where the last Habsburg Emperor Karl I is buried. What were these places and journeys like for you?
Funchal itself is very walkable, and combining walking with local buses, the Funchal Monte cable car worked really well for exploring without a car. The cable car ride is a calm and scenic lifting you up from Funchal harbor over to the roofs and over the roofs and up into the greener hills. So you see Funchal from above as a bowl between mountains and the sea. And the Monte Palace Tropical Garden felt like stepping into a different world, terraces, paths, ponds, exotic plants, arts, and tiles, where you can really take your time and just wander. Unfortunately, I didn't have that much time to wander because it was my last day and I had to make it back to the airport and back to Lisbon. However, I really liked the Japanese garden that they have there. So I went there. I mean, I could have spent like a day, even 2 days in that park,
Just in the garden.
just in the
itself.
garden. And they have some little waterfalls and very, very lush themed gardens. So I really, really enjoyed it. I hope I can go back soon. And then the other thing I did on the same day was visiting the church in Monte, which is, as mentioned, above Funchal, but it's part of Funchal. And that's where the last Habsburg Emperor Karl I was buried. He was in exile there after he lost the crown and he abdicated. And that added a more reflective and historical note to the day. And it connected this very Atlantic island to the Central European history, which was particularly meaningful to me because Karl the First was also a Hungarian king and the Austrian emperor. And when I was there and I saw his grave, I saw actually lots of people leaving Hungarian things there, like the Hungarian flag, messages in Hungarian. It was full of it. Like wasn't full of Hungarians, but you could see, like that these were all freshly brought. So it still matters to Hungarians that the last Habsburg king and our king is lying there and is buried there. And you wouldn't really expect it in Madeira because it's so far and it's in Portugal.
Hungarians are everywhere.
Yes, Hungarians are everywhere. But it's something very unique that we have this unique connection with Madeira. And it's a really steep climb. Like, actually, this is a very high up church where this is. And the scenery is amazing. And I would have loved to spend more time. But again, I was a bit short on time on that day. It was worth going. And I do recommend that people go and visit, even if they're not Hungarians. And I also recommend the Madeira Story Center in Funchal. Lisbon has something similar as well. So this is, I think, state sponsored. I'm not sure that they have a museum that is dedicated to that city. And this museum actually walks you through the island's history from its volcanic origins and early explorers to sugar and wine and tourism using interactive displays, and models, and films. So you may come away with a clear, engaging overview of Madeira in just a couple of hours. And I think that if I would go back, I would start with this museum because it gives you just a very good background and understanding about how Madeira came to be and how it developed and why it developed the way it did.
You did the Levada Valparaíso walk as part of a guided Levada tour. How would you describe the trail in terms of difficulty, scenery, and whether you'd recommend it to less experienced hikers?
I myself, I don't hike that much. I definitely should hike more, but I wanted, like, for me, safety is very important. So I did choose the most scenic walk that was still easy. Levada Valle Paraiso was for me a gentle and accessible Levada walk, mostly flat, well maintained, and not overly long. It was like half a day long. So it was very manageable, and even if you're not a seasoned hiker, it's perfect for you. The scenery really lives up to the paradise name: lush vegetation, flowers, stretches of forest, that's soothing feeling of walking along the narrow water channel with birdsong all around you. And I was there in the summer, so it was really lively. Madeira is a probably an all year destination, but still in the summer, I think it's the best because there was no rain, so you don't have problems with like slippery slopes or slippery paths. So, and that matters because there are actually a lot of places where you could accidentally fall off a cliff, for example. So I definitely recommend it to less experienced hikers and also all the other easy or medium difficulty trails. And just wear proper shoes and just be okay with a few narrower sections by the Lavada edge and go with a guide if you're nervous about navigation because you can get lost. So it happens. The Lavada is basically like a water irrigation system in Madeira, which means that they take water from higher places and they actually built an entire infrastructure that the water openly flows. So it's not like in tunnels, it actually openly flows around the island. And there are people called lavaderias who are responsible for managing who gets water when from this system. So if you want to irrigate your land or your garden, you are being told when you will get this water. And they have the last say, so you can't really like order your water dose. And it's very clean, it's there everywhere. And the guides also said that if you follow the levadas, you will eventually find places, inhabited places, towns. It's just that the levadas are only for the water, so they are not always hiking trails next to it. And there is a risk of falling or just getting to a very narrow path.
Is this Levada system like from centuries ago?
Yes, and there's a good upkeep. It's there everywhere. From a Hungarian perspective, it kind of looks like when we have rain and then there are these channels that take it away from the street. But actually, this is water for irrigation, so obviously it's not for drinking, because it's going near the paths and it has its own channel. But it's good enough for irrigation. I think it's very good in terms of saving drinking water, because drinking water has to be a lot cleaner than the natural water that flows through these lavadas, which are open. They're in open channels.
Talking about drinking water, food and drink were a big part of your trip. How did you find local specialties like Madeira's own banana variety, including savory dishes with cooked banana, super fresh seafood, as you mentioned, honey cake, which is called bolo de mel, limpets, poncha, and Madeira wine? And which of these experiences in Funchal and beyond would you most recommend?
The great thing about Madeira is that it has a unique ecosystem. So you get to try things that don't necessarily exist anywhere else. And the food and drink, of course, is a big part of my trip. I love Madeira's own banana variety. They're smaller and sweeter and appear both in desserts and in savory dishes, like salads for us, but for them it's the banana as well. And they also serve swordfish with banana, and they essentially it's basically a Portuguese treat, and it's protected by the sign Banana da Madeira, and it's mostly sold on the island and in the mainland of Portugal rather than being exported all over Europe. When I was there, I was told that the EU actually doesn't let this banana into other countries because it's smaller than the EU accepted dimensions for banana. And so it can be sold inland, but not outside.
So they cannot even call it a banana because it's not EU conform.
They can call it a banana, it's just that it's not EU conform, so it can't be exported. That's what I heard. I'm not sure if they changed the regulations or if this is a myth, but I haven't seen Madeira banana anywhere else in Europe or in the world. But it's the same, it looks the same, it's just smaller, and lots of people enjoy it and they make a living of harvesting it and trading with it. So it's just very special. And I visited Mercados dos Lavradores. It's a very famous shopping spot, a market. But I just wanted to look around because I heard that apart from Saturdays, that they usually have some overpriced stalls, and on Saturday they have fresh produce from like real farmers. But I couldn't go on a Saturday because that's how my schedule worked out. And I did try the Monstera deliciosa fruit, which is a pineapple banana, and it's locally known as banana ananas or fruto delicioso. It's and I got it from a very touristy shop elsewhere, so not in the market, but I still overpaid, and it was overpriced and compared to what you would pay in a normal supermarket. But in Funchal, unless you know the place, you don't really know where to buy these local things, local fruits. But I really wanted to try it. It took some time to ripen because when it's not ripe, it's poisonous. So you really need to wait, make sure that it's ripe. It has a consistency of a banana partially, but it's like green cucumber shaped, like a straight cucumber shaped fruit, and it exactly tastes like if you mixed banana and pineapple together. And then I think there's also some other taste in it, but this is what I mostly tasted in it. And I don't go to bars really when I travel because I think it's very important to be at your senses as much as possible. So I didn't drink poncha or Madeira wine, but I did buy them at the store and I tried them later. They're both really special. Actually, Madeira wine, the price goes up the older it gets. So you can also get like 100 years old, or you can get something that is from your birth year. I tried maybe a 10-year-old wine. I'm not 10 years old. It was just the most easily reachable. Like these 5 and 10-year-olds, 10-year-old wines are actually more accessible in shops. I just also went to a specialty shop and I saw these really old wines. And it really gave me a sense of those emblematic island flavors in a quieter way. And also poncha, they give various tastes are available, various flavors are available. So it's quite nice to enjoy responsibly and drink something that is not really available elsewhere. And for food, I think that my top recommendation would be to try the super fresh seafood and also limpets in either Funchal's Old Town or elsewhere. Limpets, as opposed to, for example, oysters, are apparently less polluted because they come from less polluted waters. They look smaller and a little bit different, but they're delicious. Maybe not just oysters, like other shellfish as well, like the more common shellfish, they are from potentially more polluted areas in the sea. So limpets are actually a healthier option when you're there. And it's really worth trying out. It has a really nice taste. And I also had it with this Madeira banana, which is also only available there. The other thing, they have a really nice honey cake, this bolo de mel, and it's great. It's very rich. The taste is very rich, and very sugary. So you can't really eat a lot at once, but it's a very special cake. Of course, the banana pineapple, as I mentioned, is worth trying, but I suggest try a supermarket, and
That's much cheaper.
it's much cheaper. And if you end up having to buy it at the market, you need to be very clear about the price and maybe just try a few different markets, see what the prices are.
Finally, we have to talk about this topic as well. Looking at the island as a whole, how safe did you feel in general in Madeira, and more specifically as a solo female traveler, both in Funchal and while on guided tours and walks? And what practical safety tips would you share with the listeners?
First of all, I would like to say that the people of Madeira, the locals, they're very respectful. There was this one time when I accidentally slipped on the street and I fell, and it was on a Sunday. And there was this lady who was in her shop, which was closed because it was a Sunday, and she came out to see if I'm all right. So that's how caring they are. And many of them also speak English, but if you speak Portuguese, that's also great. And they remember you. So there were some places I went in, I visited several times, and they would remember me just because I spoke some Portuguese to them. And in terms of tourist trap, the biggest pattern I think is overpricing rather than outright scams, especially in the very touristy areas, fruit shops and markets. My advice is to check the fruit prices in regular supermarkets first, as I said before, and just be clear about the prices, and don't be afraid to walk away. I also been to a Sunday market outside Funchal, and I think it's the same that you kind of need to be a good judge of character and see if these shopkeepers are genuine or if they're trying to scam you. And you can get great candies, special local candies also for great prices, and some different textiles, scarves as well. But you have to be careful that they're not pushy. They're not really trying to entice you to buy something, but they are actually trying to get you to decide for yourself. So they pretty much leave you alone and just give you information. As for taxis and tours, it's just good to know the prices in advance as well. And like I used one of the applications to go to the airport when I went back. The tours I paid in advance, and there was nothing. There were no extra costs. Obviously, lunch was not included, but that's fine. Don't really trust people who are just trying to get you to use services on the street, like tours or anything like that. It's generally never a good idea to have that, to have people approach you. They usually don't have your best interest at heart. But I would like to say also that Madeira, there's lots of police. There's also lots of plainclothes police. The locals told us that they really keep order, and also the locals work together so that if, for example, a guest doesn't want to pay their restaurant bill, then they will find out where that guest lives, which hotel, and then they will get their payment through the hotel, for example. So this is how the tourism industry is trying to create a community and create a safe economy for themselves. So it's kind of they have an alliance with each other. This is what I heard. It may not be true everywhere, but this was the best information I got.
Carolina, thank you for sharing your experience on Madeira with us. One thing I gathered from this episode is that a couple of days is not enough to see all the important things on the island. It's definitely on my list.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I really recommend Madeira at any time. Many people go in the spring because I think Budapest has spring to fall straight flights to Madeira. But I recommend it to everyone. It's a very peaceful place. It's very stress free, and also like people are very relaxed. There's a slower life, and really they respect women. There's no harassment. I never felt in danger at any point. So the only thing is you to avoid overpricing, and everything else, it's doesn't most things just don't happen there that happen in other bigger countries or cities. So it was a really magical journey for me. Thank you.
That was it for today's episode. You've been listening to AK Compass, guiding listeners through evolving ideas, directions. I'm Agnes Gárdonyi.
And I'm Karolina Czakó. Subscribe, rate, review if you'd like to support us. Thank you for listening.